going on, guys? Welcome to Tardy Productions. Today we're going to find out which seat is for you, the Saddlemen or the Whiplash. Now, if you're looking for stats, that's not this. If you want that information, just look it up. I'm here to give you my experience after using these seats for quite some time. So let's get some obvious things out of the way. The Saddlemen is just less intrusive than what the Whiplash is. It's a lot smaller, but it's also a lot more aggressive and boxier. So if you're looking for a more rounded, smooth finish, I don't know if this is going to be the seat for you. The Whiplash, on the other hand, has that rounded finish. It even cups down on the end of it to hug the back fender. Having the seats side by side, you can really see a difference between the widths. The Whiplash is about 13 inches and the Saddlemen is right at 10 inches. That 3 extra inches on the Whiplash is really going to come in handy on longer rides and just generally helping out with hot spots. Not only is there a difference in the driver's seat, but on the passenger section as well. The Whiplash is a bit wider and feels a little bit more squishy than what the Saddlemen does, and I feel like it gives you more surface area for the passenger to sit on. Whereas this one tapers off into a much thinner top that's a little bit more boxy, and I imagine, although I haven't ridden on the passenger seat, it would be more uncomfortable. There are 4 main points that I want to touch on for both seats. First is the pan quality, which is what the seat is actually built on. The second is the material that the seat is built with. Third is the stitching, and fourth is the overall design. Are there things that I don't like or anything that I would change? Number 1, the pan quality. Now, what is a pan? It's the base in which the seat is built on. And while you may think that that needs to be flexible, what you really want is something quite stiff. Now on the Saddlemen, the pan feels very stiff. When you try to twist it or turn it, it doesn't really move. But a point in which I've noticed gets a little bit of flexibility is the middle right here. You can see that flexible spot. Now, I do think that's counteracted with the fact that there's 2 supports right here, but that is something that I would like to point out because you really shouldn't have much flex in the seat. So as far as the Saddlemen's pan quality, I'm going to rate it a 7 out of 10. Moving right along to number 2, stitching. They did a really great job of doubling everything up. Each stitch is really well placed and nothing frayed. Even the embroidery right here is really well done. There's no fraying on it, no loose strings. It's honestly very impressive to see what this seat has gone through and the fact that all the stitching is still intact. So for number 2, the quality of the stitch, I'm going to give the Saddlemen a 9 out of 10. Moving right along to number 3, the material that the seat is made out of. It's not only flexible and soft, but it's resilient to tears and rips and scuffs, and I've poked this thing on an accident with screwdrivers more times than I care to mention. So overall, I am blown away with the quality of the material that Saddlemen uses. There's not much more I can say about the seat except for 10 out of 10 for the material. And finally, number 4, the design. There are a few design aspects that I really like about the Saddlemen. These points of contact that they put all over the bottom, they're like little nubs. The only downside to having these nubs all over the seat is these 2 on the back. If you really slam down, or maybe if you have somebody heavy on the back of the bike, it might dent the fender just because it's such a precise contact point. But besides that, I much prefer these to the traditional sitting the whole bottom of the seat on the bike. The next thing I really like is these rivets. This isn't sewing, it's not going to tear, it's not going to pull. I really love that they use rivets on the bottom. It's a much stronger and more reliable design than sewing the whole thing to the bottom or other methods. The last aspect I really liked about the Saddlemen is just the overall look and angular shape of it. This crease right here in the wall coming up, I didn't know if it was going to be uncomfortable when I first got it, but the way it locks you into the bike is like no other seat I've ever felt. I compare it to running motocross pegs as opposed to regular foot pegs. Well, think about this as motocross pegs for your butt. I've been really impressed with this, so for the design, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. But enough about the Saddlemen, it's time for the Whiplash. I was really impressed by the pan quality of the Saddlemen. That's until I got the Whiplash. This pan is so freaking ridiculously stiff and it literally will not bend. I'm not joking. This pan feels double as thick as what the Saddlemen is. So I won't even waste time on this category. 10 out of 10 for the Whiplash pan. Moving right along to number 2, the stitching. The quality of the stitching on the Whiplash is honestly really good. They did a great job of double stitching on everything. It feels nice and solid. The only thing I will say is it does feel like it's a bit thinner than what the Saddlemen is. And what I mean by that is the actual thread that they use looks and feels much thinner than what the Saddlemen uses. You can see right up here, just like many a 30-year-old's hairline, the stitching is starting to recede. But besides that, I don't really have too many other complaints about the stitching on the Whiplash. So for this one, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Next on the list is material. And for the Whiplash, they did a pretty good job. I have no real complaints about it. I think that if you crashed a couple of times and maybe, I don't know, laid this down on the ground or caught a screwdriver on it or whatever, snagged a piece of it, I do feel like it would rip because it's so thin. So just because of that, I'm gonna have to give it an 8 out of 10. Lastly on the list is design, and I have a lot of complaints about the design of this Whiplash. It's not really with where you sit or how it looks or anything like that, it's more so with the pan. Now on the Saddlemen, you saw those contact points that I showed you that sit on the frame in particular spots so as not to really rub on the frame while you ride around. It's carpeted, so I do get that that does help out a little bit with wearing down on the paint, but inevitably where the frame sits, which is right in here, that will rub off. The next part I didn't like is the way that the carpet is attached to the bottom. It's just glued. So you can see here it's starting to peel up. You can see here it's starting to peel up. On the side it's starting to peel up. It's overall not a great design. Finally, the last design flaw, and by far the worst, is the front end of this seat. When you buy aftermarket parts for your motorcycle, you expect them to improve the motorcycle in some way, shape, or form. I think we all can agree on the fact that it should not ruin the motorcycle. And that is exactly what this seat does. Once the seat's mounted up to the bike, it locks down on the tank. It wouldn't have taken much testing from Whiplash to realize that a few miles on the seat and your tank's gonna be damaged. I put it on here for just this video, and that's the amount of damage it did. Not only does it damage the bike, it damages the seat. Eventually it wears through and ends up looking like this. Then the pan completely comes out of the inside and rubs a hole in it. This is the bike that I originally got the seat off of. Look at how much damage is done to the tank, and it's not like you could avoid this in any way except for maybe putting a sock underneath it, but should you have to do that on a $500 seat? Now that we're done with all the boring stuff, let's get these things out on the road. I do want to say that this is not my first day riding either of these seats. The Saddlemen I've owned for over a year and a half now, probably just about a year and a half. And then the Whiplash I got about, I don't know, 6 months ago, and I've had some good amount of riding time on it, but it has over 2 years of riding on the seat itself. So they're both well past the break-in period, and I've had a lot of time to really sit with them and think about what I don't like and what I do. Now, when I first got the Saddlemen, I was worried that that back angle of the seat was gonna be uncomfortable. Well, to my surprise, it's actually amazing. It provides a ton of lumbar support and really feels like it locks you into the bike. Now, the Saddlemen is not a thick seat by any means. I would say it's just as thin as the stock seat. But a huge thing that it does have is gel core technology, which I was not a believer in at first. I was like, you know what, it's a gimmick. It's awesome. It's amazing. To my huge surprise, again, they did a great job at making this seat comfortable but not too bulky. Here are my tests to help you guys decide which seat is for you. We've got bumps, traffic, vibration, hot spots, and stunting. Now, everyone isn't going to stunt with these seats, but I would say a huge majority of people that buy these seats have a little bit of aggressive riding style in mind. So let's start with number 1, bumps. So up ahead, there are some brick roads that I would love to drive on. I think it'll be a great test to see how this thing takes bumps, because one bump here and there, your shocks will eat it up. But a big thing that'll test out the seat is just a consistent amount of like little bumps. And I want to make sure that you guys have a good idea of how the seat's going to feel if you're using it for around town use. So as I'm cruising over these bumps, it feels good. It doesn't feel like I'm bouncing around the seat. And the biggest thing is that I don't feel a lot of like sharp hits in my lower spine, which on the stock seat you will feel that. So as far as bumps go for the Saddlemen, I'm going to give it a pretty good score. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Now, is it a lazy boy? No, that's not what you're getting. You're not riding a Goldwing around. But is it comfortable? Absolutely. And did it help out with the bumps? For sure. Now, my next test is a very practical one, and it's stop and go. How does this seat do in traffic? How does it feel when you're putting your legs up, putting your legs down, having to stand there for a while, or sit on the seat just at idle? So on my first Yamaha Bolt, I had a Corbin seat, and this seat had a good cup to it, a nice lip to it. And while you're sitting in the seat, it was really comfortable. But as you approach stop signs and went to go put your feet down, that cup would grip your thigh, and then you'd end up leaning to one side. The Saddlemen does not do that at all. I really like how it just hugs the frame. There's no excess on the side, and it barely goes out past where the frame would be. It's a very thin profile, so when I stand on the bike, it's not in my way at all. So after cruising around in stop and go traffic for a little while, running up to a few stop signs, I'm gonna give it a really good score, a 9 out of 10. But now that we're done with traffic, we gotta get up to higher speeds because we need some vibration. So we've been going about 65, 70 for about a half an hour now, and my butt feels completely fine. I got it up to speed and kept it at speed for a while so I could get a good amount of vibration to see if it was uncomfortable. It was not uncomfortable by any means, but because I want to be very honest with you guys, it is not going to be a long distance seat in my opinion. Now don't get me wrong, there are people like Whiskey Chaser that took their Saddlemen 1,300 miles on their Bolt. Would I do that? Absolutely not. So for me, I'm gonna do a 7 out of 10 for vibration just because it had room to improve. Next is hot spots. Now, if you don't know what hot spots are, basically it's anywhere on the seat that's applying a lot of pressure to one spot on your body, probably on your butt because that's what you sit with. So after riding around with this seat for over a year, a big hot spot that I have found is with really long rides. It's not every ride, but really long rides, this crease you'll start to feel on your butt. Last month when I did about a 4-hour ride, I really felt that at the end of it. Now, it took about 4 hours, like I said, to get there, but it is something that you want to keep in mind. So because of that, I'm gonna have to give it an 8 out of 10. Now we're on to our last point, stunting. How does this seat hold up to wheelies and drifts? How does it feel when you're doing it? We're gonna find out right now. I freaking love this seat, dude. Literally, the Saddlemen is unchallenged when it comes to drifting. It is so thin and out of the way, you don't even feel like it's there. Woo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, baby, dude, I love this freaking seat. It's like a dirt bike seat for cruisers. Freaking love this seat. 10 out of 10 for stunting. I don't even have to. Well, I should probably do a wheelie, actually. I've just ridden around on it so much that I've learned to love this seat a ton for stunting. Wheelies, drifting, everything. It locks you into the bike. That wall is amazing. So let me do a few wheelies, and then we'll switch over to the Whiplash and see which one is better for you. You get the point. I'm horrible at wheelies. But it does lock you in, and I think that if you were really good at wheeling, it probably would help you a ton with not falling off. So my score still stands. That was a lot of S's. 10 out of 10 for stunting. I really, really love this seat for stunting, and if that's what you're buying a seat for, I would recommend, even before we get to the Whiplash, I'd try the seat out. So now that we've thoroughly tested out and reviewed the Saddlemen, it's time for the Whiplash. The Saddlemen is a very thin, low-profile seat. The Whiplash seat, on the other hand, is not only wide, but it's very thick. Like, I physically feel like I'm higher on the bike. Let's see how this thing performs in the city. And just like with the Saddlemen, we're starting with bumps. Now, already riding over some of these bumps, I can definitely feel that this one, and I don't know how it's possible, this one, even though it's thicker, is a little bit stiffer. And it's definitely been broken in. It's got about 2 years of riding on it. The Saddlemen that I was riding has about 1.5 years, so they're both well past break-in period. Okay. Let's try to hit some of these bumps. Alright, so it did pretty well. I'm not going to say it's the most comfortable. The thickness is there, and like the width of the seat, you'd think because of the larger surface area, it would be more comfortable, but because of the material, I guess, or maybe the foam, I'm not really sure. It was a little bit more stiff than what I would have liked. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. So how does this thing do in traffic when it's stop and go and you're having to put your feet down and feet up? There's like a bowl shape to the seat, and it even lips up on the sides where your thighs go down, and it almost feels like it bows your legs out a little bit. I'm not really sure how I feel about that. It's almost like the seat is too wide in the middle between your legs. Now, where my butt is, it's nice and comfortable. So when you're riding around, it's nice to have that big bowl shape to fit your butt inside. But when you stop and you put your feet down, that bowl shape kind of hits on the side of your thighs. And I don't know, I don't really particularly like it very much. It just is not comfortable with your legs down. So for traffic, I'm gonna have to give it a pretty low score. I'm gonna go 5 out of 10. Well, we're still in the city, just like with the Saddlemen. I wanna do drifts and wheelies and see how it responds to that. Something I immediately notice is, just like in the traffic when you put your foot down, that big wall that comes up on the side of the seat kind of does make it a bit uncomfortable. But let me get a few more drifts in and see how I feel. It's not horrible. I don't know. I feel like that lip on the side, while it's comfortable with your feet up, and maybe if I was better at drifting and I could drift feet up, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. But because I have to put my foot down during drifts, I don't know, you really do feel that angle of the edge of the seat. All right, now let's try a couple wheelies on this. I don't know how I felt about that. Wheelies, I'm kind of getting disappointed, dude. I don't know, I'm not really feeling this Whiplash for stunting. Let's do another wheelie real quick and then let's get the heck out of here. I was really hoping
hoping it would do well. I'm gonna give it like an 8 out of 10. I don't know, maybe a 7 out of 10. Let's do an 8 out of 10 just because it didn't do bad. It doesn't feel like it locks you in like what the Saddlemen does. I feel like it's more of like it locks you in for cruising. Because it scoops and it doesn't like have that lip there, your butt slides up to almost the peak of it, and if it were any lower, I feel like I would fall off. All right, so we're cruising about 65 right now, and the vibrations are actually pretty negligible. Overall, it does feel a lot more comfortable than what the Saddlemen was feeling. So for vibrations, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. The width and the cup shape it really is nice. If I'm doing more long distance riding, this might be the seat that I get. Now that we're done with vibrations, let's talk about hot spots. Now this seat has that cup shape, so there's nothing there, but on the sides, that lip, man, it keeps coming back to bite the seat in the butt. See, if you look right here, there's this like lip thing, and it's so cupped that yes, it is comfortable while you're sitting straight on the bike, but after a little while, you start feeling it so much. It becomes more of a nuisance than a help. I do like the shape of the cup. I really do. Like for riding around, it helped out with the vibration. It helps with steering the bike. Hot spots, I'm gonna go 9 out of 10 because it did a really good job, but it was not perfect. That little lip at the front is kind of annoying after a little while. Is it the end of the world? Absolutely not. Is this a gold wing? No. So if you're looking for a couch with wheels, you're gonna have to look for another bike. But as far as these two seats go, 9 out of 10 for this one. Hot spots, very minimal.
If you guys have any questions about either of these seats, just comment down below and I'll answer them as best I can. If you disagree with anything I had to say, I'd love to hear about it. Leave it down in the comments. I'm Aaron, this is Turdy Productions, and I'll catch you guys next week.